Hello? Is, is this thing on? Hi, yeah, me, back. Been a while, apologies for that. Today we've got the British Grand Prix at Alpine. Lots of people asking me, when's the next F1 Manager video? I'll be honest, I wanted it up sooner than the day you're watching this, but there's just lots of stuff going on at the moment behind the scenes here at Work the Space HQ. The good news for you though is, we're back, heading to Silverstone, and we've got our first monster upgrade of the series here. We've got a big underfloor upgrade, which I'm hoping is going to propel us towards, well, the top of the grid, maybe even the front of the grid. Probably not, getting a little bit carried away there, but yeah, we got that to look forward to. Let's run the intro, let's get into this. I'm excited, you should be too. Yes, folks, how is it going? And welcome back to Alpine. Today is episode number 10 of our F1 Manager Let's Play. We are going to Silverstone. And as I've already mentioned, this underfloor upgrade, it arrives in 3 days. The Grand Prix is in 4 days. I'm hoping that we're going to have time to hit continue here, get it, well, design completed, and then emergency build it. If I can't now do this, this is going to be rather awkward. But if I'm not mistaken, if we go to underfloor, click the spec 2, we can emergency build these. Now, I will say, bit of feedback for anyone at Frontier watching, I don't think you should be able to do this. I feel like as a kind of emergency option, if a player runs out of parts, it's probably a good idea to have the ability to build stuff on no day's notice. But ultimately, in this situation here, it doesn't feel right that I can just throw money at a problem and get something made in 3 days. The good news is, the manufacturing's been completed. We now have the underfloor. Now, I know what you're thinking, Jack. How big is this upgrade? Well, I've installed it on Alonso's car and not Ocon's. And if we just hit E here, you can now see a comparison between the two cars. It improves a hell of a lot. All the cornering is just much better now, which is really what we want to see. Maybe less so the high speed, although the medium speed and low speeds definitely get a benefit. Top speed gets an increase too. Yeah, I'm hoping this is going to be a significant upgrade. I'll be honest, when I look at it now, it's not quite as impressive as I thought it was going to be, but we'll move on. And for those of you getting a little bit worried, don't worry, I have now gone and installed the extra parts. And now both cars run in the new underfloor. We do actually have time now to develop and design new parts too. So the ATR period reset, and I'm just tempted to go with more and more underfloors. I suppose the other option at this point would be just to research for next year. Let me have a think about this. Our current expectation is 4th in the Constructors. We are comfortably 3rd, but not that far behind Red Bull, to be honest, who are absolutely bottling things. Mercedes are a little bit behind. There's no way we don't finish top 4 here. I'm going to make a decision. You know what? I made a decision. Going to do something different. I'm just going to research for next year. I mean, let's be honest. It's not like we're suddenly going to be challenging at the front of the grid at the end of this year and potentially winning the Constructors. We're going to achieve our aim. So with that in mind, let's just start researching for next year. We've got loads of new kind of research period and hours in the wind tunnel. I'm going to put a load into research in the underfloor and a load into other stuff too. So for the underfloor, I'm going to put a high-speed focus on things. At the moment, I like to stick to the presets. I feel like if you start sliding these sliders, the game becomes a little bit too easy, at least for my own likings. Of course, play the game the way that you want. I'm going to research a balanced rear wing, I think. In fact, no, high-speed performance gets impacted more. We're going to research a high-speed wing thing because, well, that 30% decrease would hurt our car otherwise. Minor issue here. Just realised with our current facilities, I can only design 2 parts at a time. So let's make sure we actually have all of our engineers actually working on stuff. Be a little bit awkward to leave them around. And you know what? I've got 43 million down here. Let's go and make it so we can design more parts at once. Okay, factory and design centre being upgraded. That's going to help us longer term. We still have a little bit of money in the bank, although I kind of feel like keeping that for now. I feel like we've now done all the admin-y stuff. I have also swapped out some car parts when it comes to the engines. Actually, it wasn't even the engines. It was the ERS and also the gearboxes I've updated for the new race. Right, that's all the admin stuff. Shall we go do some motor racing? I always feel like the admin-y bits at the beginning of these episodes is the least sexy bit. It's certainly the least sexy bit of F1 Manager, but I have to show you what we're doing behind the scenes here at Alpine. Of course, we're heading to the British Grand Prix, as I've already mentioned. We are a French team, so it'd be a little bit of a middle finger to all the British representation across the grid and within the sport if the French team could win it. Last thing to do before we head into the race weekend is set our qualifying objectives. I think we can get both cars into Q3. I say that, we have actually struggled to do that this year. But you know what? Today's going to be different. Big upgrades today. Good car. Track that suits us. We're going to do amazing. I can just feel it. Please don't come back to bite me, that statement. That would be awkward. You know the deal by now. I have simulated practice, as you can see here. Alonso 7th, Ocon 8th. The only cars ahead of us are Mercedes, an Alfa Romeo, a Red Bull and a Ferrari. Max Verstappen leading the way, but has a grid penalty to serve. I wish there was a way I could tell you what the grid penalty is, but this game doesn't have that feature yet. So we'll find out after qualifying how he's going to be shaping up, how far down the grid he is going to be falling with that penalty. As for ourselves, I think we're ready and raring to go here. A nice sunny weekend ahead. Let's get off to the best possible start with a solid qualifying performance, shall we? So heading into this qualifying, new upgrade in hand, feeling pretty confident about things, to be honest. And, well, you know the deal by now. Q1 opens up. One of my cars out straight away. And the good news for us, well, both cars actually was, for the first time in what feels like forever, no traffic on track, no one to slow us down. Ocon and Alonso putting in some really, really good times. I do think Alonso might have actually lost a little bit of time approaching Leclerc, but it didn't end up costing us. And well, to end Q1, we just sat in the garage and let everyone else do their thing. You can see, even with those initial times, Ocon all the way up in 6th, looking really, really impressive. Alonso in 9th as well. In terms of drivers eliminated, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, our big rival, out in the first qualifying session. He got stuck behind Latifi, and because we'd only done one running in Q1, we had, well, an extra pair of softs, tyres for all intents and purposes. So for this first run-in of Q2, we slapped on the softs that had done the first run previously at the start of Q1, and as we crossed the line, some really, really impressive times here. A second faster than the Alfa Romeos for both Alonso and Ocon. Actually, I say that, Ocon maybe lost a little bit more time. Alonso, faster than Max Verstappen in Sector 2. That bodes really, really well for our car. Anyway, going on further into the session, you can see our cars up in 4th and 5th. We slapped on some fresh softs, which we now had access to. And to be honest, I didn't really know if we needed to go out here. And ultimately, as our drivers came around the final few corners, Gasly, Russell, Tsunoda, Danny Ricciardo, all already slower than us and done. We didn't need to go out again here as things stood. Alonso in 5th, Ocon crossed the line, improved but not enough to close down on his teammate. But nevertheless, only the Red Bulls and Ferraris quicker than us in Q2 was a really, really, really positive sign. I was hoping really, going into the final qualifying session, you know, maybe an upset could be on the cards. So, well, with the used softs that we just used to end Q2, we went out once more. A good opening drive for both drivers. Again, no incidents, no blocking, clean and simple. We were the only team to use used softs for these initial run-ins. And when the times came in, I was mighty, mighty impressed. Alonso, as he has been for a lot of the year, going slightly faster than Ocon. You can see, running in P2 and P4, there had been a little bit of traffic on track, so I wasn't sure really what to expect. But I was starting to believe that maybe, I don't know, top 4 might be possible. We knew it was going to be very difficult to beat the Red Bulls and Ferraris. Heading into this final running, feeling a little bit nervous, but also optimistic. Verstappen up the road. He had gone out first in Q3 in this final set of runnings. As the session ended, he approached the end of the track, the end of the lap. You can see he'd gone purple in Sector 2, yellow in Sector 1. Leclerc had also been struggling. I was starting to believe Alonso P2, Ocon P4. Could we hold on to these positions? Well, I'll tell you what happened first and foremost. Verstappen crossed the line. He did not go faster. Was that going to be a pattern of this session? Not for George Russell. He improved, but only up to 6th, so definitely going to be ahead of both Mercedes, which is massive. Sainz crossed the line. He was in 3rd. He improved by 0.4 of a second. And I kind of realised at that point it was going to be a tall order for our drivers. Alonso did go quicker. Not quick enough, though, on the fresh tyres. Leclerc coming around the final corner. Perez as well, just up the road ahead of him. Leclerc went on to P1. Perez got P4. Ocon crossed the line in what was a flurry of times here at the end of the lap. Sadly, he could only go 6th fastest. And as well as the final driver crossed the line, the Alfa Romeo, the grid was set. 5th for Alonso, 6th for Ocon. Only the Red Bulls and Ferraris better than us, which, I mean, I was kind of happy about, and going into this weekend I would have taken. Max Verstappen has a penalty, so he might yet get shuffled up a little bit and end up on the second row of the grid with Alonso. As for our big rivals, well, Lewis Hamilton struggling. He is going to be down at the back, and, well, we're in a good position to extend our lead over them further. Of course, Silverstone is a very high-speed track. A lot can happen in a race. Let's see how we get on, shall we, as we head in to race day. So heading into the British Grand Prix, we're in uncharted territory here, folks. We've not been here before. Alonso starting 4th. and Ocon starting 5th. That after the Max Verstappen penalties he has taken for this race. Now, in terms of strategies, interestingly enough, the game kind of recommended strategy was medium hards, then softs, or medium hard mediums, or maybe the one stopper. But given the fact we've actually shown some really good pace around here, I want to get punchy and I want to get a little bit feisty. So with that in mind, we're going to be trying something using the mediums and the softs. I feel like this is a strategy that works when you have legitimate pace, and I want to believe at this point we do have some legitimate pace. So with both drivers, we're opting to, well, forgo the hard tyres. They might come into play if there's a safety car in the first half of the race. We could look to go onto the hards for a stint. But ultimately, I want to really try and take the fights to the Red Bulls and Ferraris. I think with the help of DRS, with some smart strategy, we could end up really, really well off here. The reason for starting both drivers on medium tyres versus the softs is I don't think on the softs we'd have enough tyre life to create a gap to pit into. Obviously, when a race starts, everyone goes off and on their way. If you start on the red tyre, you're going to need to pit earlier. And because the race hasn't been going for as long, the pack are a lot less spread out. And so if you pit, you're likely to come out with a load of other traffic. So I want to believe by taking the mediums, we can avoid that a little bit. Anyway, this is the plan. It's got lots of flexibility with it if a safety car happens, but I think it gives us a good chance of at least securing, I want to believe, a top 6 finish with both drivers. We have pace. It's now time to see if we can show it in the race.
I hope I'm not tempting fate here, but there are quite a few clouds overhead as we look at the lineup on the grid. Looking here at Fernando Alonso. A top 10 position today, but will they be able to capitalise on it? Further back, we've got Esteban Ocon. With a top 10 position on the grid, this race could really go either way for them. The teams are ready to go. Anticipation is high, and the drivers are ready for this. The British Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go.
Okay, buckle up, folks. Let's see how we get on here. We're going to jump on board with Alonso. Of course, Ocon is just going to be to his left here. The British Grand Prix, a very, very quick circuit. No driver instructions on our drivers right now, although as they race wheel to wheel, maybe I'm going to have second thoughts about that. Into turn 4, into turn 5. Ocon's actually going to have the inside line here on Alonso. Maybe we should try and be a little more sensible as well. Alonso gets squeezed out, and in fact, it's Ocon up the road. Now, right behind the Red Bull off the rip here. As for Verstappen, looks like he did take, I think, maybe a 10-place grid penalty and made up a few places early on. Ocon looking to go around the outside here of Sergio Perez. Also on that yellow medium tyre, just looking at the general strategy across the grid, the medium tyre is the dominant one. Don't be surprised to see lots of teams running mediums and then going on to hards midway through the race and going on to the end. Or maybe going medium, hards, mediums. They're kind of the two likely strategies we might see. Both these cars, though, racing at very high speed. Alonso has probably got a great view here to watch the action unfold. As well, we now head into what is one of the DRS zones here at Silverstone. Of course, just as a little reminder, there is no DRS for the first 2 laps. So we've not got that in hand. But to be honest, I feel like we are going to struggle to get past the Red Bull today. Maybe we just need to be sensible with our drivers. Maybe we should just settle for what we've got. 4th and 5th is not a bad place to be. Looking at the cars behind, Bottas is not far behind. Gasly, though, way, way, way further back. The front 6 cars pulling away early on as, oh my word, Esteban Ocon, he really wants to get past Perez, doesn't he? You can see it. He's chasing him down. He's hunting behind. There is going to have to come a point here where we do have to tell him just to relax a little bit. But you know what? Through this corner here, you can deploy Esteban. You can have a go at him if you want. The Red Bull all out of shape there, actually. Perez really struggling. Alonso with a front row seat to see Esteban Ocon slot in front of Sergio Perez and take 3rd in this race.
Awesome. Keep it up.
Lap 3, DRS enabled. Ocon just about in DRS range of the Ferraris. And in deploying with Ocon, he's now built up a second gap over Perez. And if that gap remains, Perez is not now going to have DRS to protect himself from a rather hungry Fernando Alonso. Perez in all kinds of trouble. The DRS flap not open for him. Alonso needs to make a move here if he can. Maybe at the inside. He didn't even try to make the move there. Alonso, maybe he knows more than I do. Maybe he's a little wiser than I. Although I say all of this, what is this move? This is not a place you're meant to make an overtake. Up the inside he goes. There is wheel-to-wheel wrestling going on. And in fact, Perez has to drop back. He has to give the place up. Alonso is now a long way behind Ocon, but all of this squabbling for fourth is just allowing Ocon to vanish up the road. He is in a great spot. Ocon right behind the Ferraris here as we head into lap 4 and head down the Hamilton straight. Next corner up is going to be Abbey, maybe in a chance for an overtake here, but unfortunately we are just a little bit too far behind. But to be honest, it's kind of in our interest just to trail behind now as Ocon does set the fastest lap of this race. Don't expect that to last. Of course, as the cars get lighter, as the fuel load goes, as perhaps cars move on to fresher tyres slightly later on, the times will tumble. But you can see here, he's just right behind the lot and, well, going down the Wellington Straight. He's going to have the help of DRS. Unfortunately, Alonso isn't, but maybe fortunately for him, Perez continuing to struggle. Over a second behind Alonso, who's now, I think, going to start driving his own race. Unless Perez can close the gap. Bottas has just made the move on Perez as well. That is an Alfa Romeo that is definitely not as fast as we are, beating the Red Bull to 5th. And right now, we are in an amazing position to make something special happen here. Into Stowe we go. Ocon trailing behind the Ferraris. You can see here how close all three of these cars for the lead of the race are, all within 0.4 of a second. Is anyone going to attempt to make a move through the final few corners of the lap? It does look like Leclerc is maybe edging slightly on the side of caution. In Ocon's instance here, and in Ocon's case, we are looking just to save a little bit of battery if we can. Right now, he has depleted it a little to build a gap up. Alonso, already, if we just switch to the map view, riding his own race in fourth. He's just vibing away. He's chilling out. Leclerc is about to take the lead of this race here. I'll tell you what, Sainz looks like he's struggling a little bit in that second place Ferrari, and Ocon is not far behind, sniffing away for all the opportunities. We are playing a bit of a patient race here. We have actually managed to charge up the battery a hell of a lot, which is a really, really good kind of situation to be in. Meanwhile, Alonso has built up a little bit of a gap to the Red Bulls behind, but do not underestimate Max Verstappen. Currently running in 6th. He was starting down in the bottom half of the grid, if I'm not mistaken. He has worked his way through. He is looking very, very quick right now. If we just look at the last lap times, he is fast. He's getting stuck behind his teammate a little bit, though. Do not be surprised to see Red Bull ask Perez to move aside. Verstappen might be the man who Alonso needs to be wary of in the latter stages of this race. This feels like a game of patience for Ocon. The Ferraris are really pushing each other hard. He is having to push his tyres to keep up with them because they have got that little bit of extra engine power. But we've got surplus fuel. There's loads of battery. And we're in just a good little spot. They are towing us along. You can see Alonso has been losing a little bit of time every lap. Of course, no one around him to get DRS off. But still a nice 3-second margin to the two Red Bulls trailing behind. And well, maybe a chance here for Ocon. Are we about to go 3 wide here into Stowe? That's not a thing. That is not a thing. Ocon cuts across the grass, makes the move on Carlos Sainz, who has been struggling a little bit. And suddenly we're up to 2nd. I don't quite know how we've made this work. The new floor upgrade is clearly working a treat. Does help with our low-speed cornering, which certainly aids with overtakes in the more windy tracks, but I wasn't expecting us to see the biggest performance gains here. And, well, don't be surprised if Sainz passes us yet again, but this suddenly gives me a lot of belief that if we do want to turn everything up to the max, we could push Ferrari here. Bad news for us, Max Verstappen has been let by Perez. 11 laps into this race, already 20% of the way through. You can see Alonso is just up the road, but without DRS. Verstappen's going to have to work pretty hard, I think, to catch him. In terms of these medium tyres, we're expecting to pit around lap 20. You can see we're looking to go a little bit sooner with Ocon, just with a slightly different strategy with the 2 mediums followed by the softs at the end. But yeah, in the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 laps, we might start to see the first few teams pulling cars into the pits. Not what we want to see, but it's not completely disastrous. Sainz making up the inside of Ocon. Does feel like the hangar straight is the area where you can get overtakes done in F1 Manager, and you can see now the Ferraris reunited at the front, but Ocon took it in just behind. He knows what's expected. He knows we don't need to worry just yet. Even if the cutscene's going to cut to my mechanics having mental breakdowns in the pits, It's not that bad. This is fine. I do feel a little bit sorry here for Fernando Alonso because he's got no one in front of him for any help. And whilst the Red Bulls are fighting with one another, they keep giving each other DRS. And all this really allows is, as we're seeing here, Verstappen to take the lead over Perez with DRS. In the next DRS zone, Perez will pass Verstappen. And with that, they are slowly but surely eating in to that 3-second lead that Alonso once upon a time did have. As you can see right now, that gap is at 2 seconds. So they're only 1 second away from having DRS on both drivers. And right now, they're catching by not far away from a second a lap. Okay, we are about to pit here, I think, with Ocon. Leclerc's gone into the pits. I expect Sainz to follow not too long after. So we're going to move on to the mediums. This was always the plan. Interesting to note, both Leclerc and Perez pitting a lap sooner than expected. Bottas also coming into the pits, as is Gasly. Seems like a lot of the cars on the medium tyres are going to pit now. They are putting on hard tyres. I don't think they can make their hards last to the end from here. I think they are going to pit one further time later on. Obviously, for Ocon right now, it's kind of in our interest for him to be in and around Sainz at the front. I'm kind of expecting Sainz to pit this lap. It's going to be very, very interesting, I suppose, to see where Ocon comes out in relation to Leclerc. Because Leclerc was, I believe, leading this race. Certainly, he was ahead of Ocon. I am going to ask Ocon, who's just cleared Sainz now, to really hammer time it. We've charged up our battery. We've conserved fuel. We've saved the tyres. We're going to pit this lap. Let's see if we can have a bit of a blockbuster lap here by Ocon. He's not necessarily the fastest driver when it comes to his race pace, but with clean air ahead of him, maybe, just maybe, we can get a move done over on Leclerc, who is going to be right now struggling a little bit to get some temperature into his harder tyres. As for Alonso, still on these medium tyres, Verstappen is behind by 1.7 seconds. Given the fact that Alonso's not really got anyone around him, I'm going to keep him out here. I kind of hope that Verstappen's going to pit. He hasn't pitted. That's not really what we want to see. Neither has Sainz, interestingly enough. So my prediction that was, well, with seeing both Leclerc and Perez pitting, maybe we'd see other people pit. It's not happened. Both the Red Bull and the Ferrari teams have kind of split their strategies a little bit. Big question now is going to be, where does Ocon come out? But, well, when it comes to Alonso, the plan is to pit him in 3 laps. Depending on how things emerge over the next few laps, I might keep him out a little bit longer. We could potentially look at the one-stopper. Ocon's going to come out, by the way, and he is going to come out ahead of Charles Leclerc. Not a whole lot of pace here, and Leclerc is going to have DRS. Which, I mean, to be fair, we kind of expect him now to go ahead of us. Obviously, Sainz now hasn't pitted, so Sainz is leading the race. But he's got no one for DRS. And now, in the same way the Red Bulls work together, I want to believe that we can work together. Fernando Alonso's just had a spin, though. There's yellow flags as a result of it. I think Verstappen passed us with that. And for a driver who's not made many mistakes this year, this could be catastrophic. Coming through Luffield. And I think it was Luffield there. He's just lost the rear end. Verstappen was sniffing behind. Makes the move. And unfortunately for us, Alonso now down in P3. Not the most disastrous spin I've ever seen in F1 Manager. But maybe the one-stop is the play. I was literally just saying, wasn't I, about how the one-stop is perhaps an option. You can see here the game lists it as a strategy B. And you know what? I think we're going to go for it. Just because there's no one really around us. I think if we can run on these mediums for a few laps longer, plenty of the cars behind us will be pitting or will have pitted. There should be plenty of space to put him out into. It's a bit of a shame that Verstappen's just too far up the road to get a helping hand from, because it'd be quite nice to get DRS off him right now. As things stand, Alonso, bit of a recovery drive, bit of a lonely drive for him today. I feel like the overview map here gives you a nice view of kind of how this race is emerging. Sainz and Verstappen have not pitted. The Red Bull of Perez that was pitted came out into a load of traffic and he is just bogged down. As for ourselves and Leclerc, we pitted together. We're working together. George Russell is just behind us for company, but he has not yet pitted in this race. You can see he's on those medium tyres. I think the rest of the medium runners are going to be pitting before too long. But if we see them pit around lap 24, do not be surprised to see them doing what Alonso's doing and going for a one-stopper where they slap on hards and just run to the end of the race on them. Does look like a few teams might be trying that. And as this is all going on, Leclerc has passed Ocon. Not going to panic too much here. As I said, we need to work together like the Red Bulls are working together. This is fine. Don't panic. A little bit concerned about the Mercedes behind. Don't want them to get in front of us. Ocon and Leclerc are working together. They are actually catching a lot of the teams towards the front. You can see here almost a second per lap quicker than Verstappen and Sainz right now. But if the Sainz and Verstappen are going to only stop once in this race, well, between Leclerc and Ocon, they're going to have to basically save what would essentially work out to be a pit stop's worth of time, which at this track, it's about 25 seconds if I'm not mistaken. And the bad news for us is there's only 30 laps left. So we have to maintain this pace, and we've also got to pit ourselves. The one stopper is looking rather strong right now. Alonso might be in a good little position if he can make it work. Okay, big moment in this race. Verstappen in P6 has just pitted. He has slapped on hard tyres. He could be trying to go to the end on them. That is definitely not beyond the realms of possibility. He's now running in 6th. He is behind the likes of Leclerc and Ocon. But the bad news for us is we've got to pit again. And as things stand, he's only about 10 seconds behind us. So we need to make up a few more seconds before the pit stops happen. And by pit stops, I of course mean the second set of pit stops, which are going to be happening around lap 40. Sainz is also pitting from the lead of this race. Of course, Alonso going on to the one stopper. Sainz coming in. Are they going to be putting the white hard tyres on? They are. This might be his only pit stop for the rest of the race. In fact, I'm almost certain of it. So everyone at the front has split strategies. We have one stopped, or we're going to try and one stop with Alonso, who's going to pit this next lap. Sainz and Verstappen have one stopped. And then as for ourselves, well, we've had Ocon 2 stop. You have to imagine, and it has to happen, Leclerc is also going to be 2 stopping, as is Perez. This race is a weird one. The 3 fastest teams all copying each other. We've all copied each other's homework. You have to imagine it's going to be one car from each team in the front 3 at the end. It now all comes down to which is the best strategy. I say all of that just as a reminder. Perez got stuck in traffic. So despite the fact he's got to stop again, he's actually behind his teammate who's already stopped. So Sergio Perez has kind of got shafted a little bit today. It's a fairly good stop for us, actually. 2.6 seconds is a really, really good time. Ocon and Leclerc doing well, but you can see Sainz, he's only 2.5 seconds behind the leader of this race, and he probably doesn't have to stop again. Ocon has to really get his moves on here. We need to get going. Ourselves and Leclerc need to push a bit harder and maybe go a little bit quicker. Lap 28, Ocon and Leclerc are going to have to stop again. I'm almost certain of it. Leclerc's down at 80% wear already. Unless Leclerc and Perez are going to try some mental one-stopper where they make their hards last forever, they're going to be following what we're doing with Ocon, albeit with slightly different tyres. Right now, Sainz is sat in basically a net P1 in this race. He's in a great position to win it all. 3.6 seconds behind. As for Alonso, he and Perez just keep swapping positions. They're developing a beautiful blossoming friendship. Alonso's tyres have significantly less wear. Perez, of course, pitted about 10 laps earlier. He is probably going to have to pit again before things are over. As for Alonso, 6th feels assured as long as he doesn't spin again. Right now, Russell is 12 seconds behind in P7. I can't believe this. Latifi is running in last. We are catching him, and he blocks the road for Ocon and Leclerc. They have to park up and let Latifi get out of the way, and suddenly Carlos Sainz, who's now getting past Latifi himself, is directly behind us. That 4 seconds we worked so hard to try and create a gap for has vanished. And with it, Carlos Sainz now feels destined to win the race. Latifi, you have absolutely ruined my day. The good news is there is a nice slot for us to pit him into on the softs. He will come out in clean air and be able to push. The bad news, of course, now is with that Latifi incident, he isn't winning this race. He might even struggle to finish in the front 3, in all honesty. It's not a good day for Ocon. We should have adapted our strategy and gone onto the hards. It's very easy to say that in hindsight. In the moment, it looked like the right decision when we saw Leclerc go into the pits to pit again. But Ferrari, in sabotaging Leclerc's race, have also sabotaged our own. And to make things even worse, to compound our misery potentially even more, I thought Leclerc was about to get past us. We've held him off at least for now, but this Ferrari is quicker than we are. Leclerc is in the pits. They are putting mediums on him to the end of the race. We are going to be pitting a lap later, but we are going to be putting on the soft tyres, which is a faster tyre. Because of how we tactically used our tyres, we have a set of these in our back pockets that are fresh, that we're going to be able to push Ocon on Right now, though, we need to make sure we come out in and around Leclerc. This needs to be a really, really good lap for us. Leclerc drops down to 6th. Sainz actually makes the move on Ocon, which isn't what we want to see, but maybe it can help us out slightly. Unfortunately, the man who's now ahead of us doesn't need to pit again. And we do still need to pit. So any hopes of Ocon, well, coming out with a monstrous race result are over. I think matching the 2nd place he got in Canada probably isn't going to happen, unfortunately. Meanwhile, Perez and Alonso, they're still just doing their thing. These two have been working together for a long, long time now. I suspect Perez might pit this lap, which is going to give Alonso some free air to work in. He's been following Perez for fairly long stints here. Has allowed us to save some fuel, which is really, really nice. We are going to be able to get a little bit punchy with Alonso as this goes on. Worth noting, Leclerc has come out of the pits 4 seconds behind Alonso. So if Perez pits, Ocon's now in the pits. Alonso could still get 3rd today. This is a big moment for us. Ocon into the pits. We are putting on that red racing soft tyre. So red, we called it red 3 times. Perez has also come into the pits, which is great for us. Going to be interesting now to see where Alonso comes out alongside Ocon. Of course, Ocon is going to have that little bit more race pace. Alonso is weighing clear up the road, actually. I thought they were going to come out closer together. With Ocon, we're going to leave him to push initially here, deploy battery and try and create a gap. You can see Leclerc just behind, but on the medium tyres. I'm hoping the surplus battery that we have here and pushing hard on it, we can get this gap above a second over the Ferrari and vanish. If we can't, Leclerc's going to be pushing Ocon to the very, very end of this race. And as Ocon looks to get temperatures into his tyres, you can see that gap between him and Leclerc doesn't look like it's getting bigger like I need it to. I feel a bit sad here for Alonso. He's lost his friend. Perez has left him. We're going to up his fuel mode a little. He's now running in 3rd. He's 9-10 seconds there or thereabouts actually behind Verstappen. Of course, a safety car in the last 15 laps could bunch everyone up. And it's everyone's favourite driver, Nicholas Latifi, just up the road. He's already ruined Ocon's race. Latifi, do not spin out again here, mate. Please just get out the way. Don't do anything stupid. Okay, he's gone into the pits. Breathe a sigh of relief, everyone. They've managed to catch up with Alonso just up the road. 2 seconds saved, but unfortunately, with all this pushing, Ocon has no battery. Leclerc's still right behind us. I now have to let Leclerc go and hope that Leclerc gets past us, and with him ahead, we can, well, maybe save our tyres a little bit, charge the battery, maybe push him for an overtake at the end. The way things are looking, though, with Ocon and Leclerc's times here, though, they are, you know, pretty quick laps. A second a lap they're gaining. There's 14 laps left of this race. If they could push like they are right now, Ocon and Leclerc could still catch Max Verstappen for 2nd. Might be a little bit of a tall order, though. It did feel somewhat inevitable. Leclerc has now got past Ocon. The good news, we've managed to charge our battery up a little bit. I'm now hoping that behind the Ferrari, we're just going to be able to, well, keep up. Next car up the road for these two drivers, by the way, is poor Alonso, who, besides Perez, has just been on his lonesome for this race. To be fair, he's in a good little spot to still secure a top 5 finish. Perez, who got pitted early on, you might remember, into traffic, has now done his additional stop. He is 17 seconds behind Ocon. Shows how important it is in that opening part of the race to get as far up the road as you can so that when you do pit, you're not coming out behind a load of cars who are significantly slower and who aren't pitting for a while, because it can be difficult to get past them. I'm currently playing the world's smallest violin for our rivals Mercedes. George Russell has locked up. I don't think he's lost any positions with that, but a bad week for them. It goes from bad to worse. And elsewhere, at the exact same time, Yuki Tsunoda's running wide. No safety car been called yet. We've not had too many incidents. That wasn't too big of an incident, to be honest. But this race has been fairly predictable. Now Vettel's locked up. What is happening here? 3 incidents in the space of a minute. Vettel locked up at the same part as Russell. I mean, if any of the cars in front of us want to do that, that would be lovely. Esteban Ocon pushing hard. DRS, can he get round the outside of Charles Leclerc here? I'll tell you what, he absolutely can. And with a charged battery and with a little bit of life in these tyres, shall we try and build that gap? We tried once and failed miserably. The next car up the road is Alonso. What we might end up doing here is passing Alonso, who I am going to instruct to not fight his teammate. Then we might be looking at Alonso to slow down Leclerc if he can. I feel like on raw pace we can't beat Leclerc. But if we can tactically swap our drivers around, get Ocon in front, maybe Alonso, who's done it a few times in real life, can make his car as wide as possible and hold up the Ferrari, which, if we look behind, is not very far behind as things stand. Esteban Ocon has just set a fastest lap of this race. He is pushing hard, and in fact, he might even be within a second of Alonso here for DRS. I'm not sure where the detection point here is, as Alonso is going to get out the way of his teammate, let him by. Ocon is going to have DRS. Unfortunately for us, in the kerfuffle of trying to make a tactical manoeuvre happen, well, you can see what's happened. Alonso's got out the way, let his teammate by, but he has also let Charles Leclerc by, who in the fracas has now managed to move up to third. And all that pushing to try and get a gap, to try and play strategic, has not worked. Leclerc just whizzed past both our drivers on the same straight. I don't think Ocon had DRS, sadly, and you can just see here, it's all too simple, isn't it, for the Ferrari? Of course, they are on the medium tyres. Ocon is on the faster tyre. They don't need to manage their mediums. Our softs, whilst we shouldn't need to manage them, we can't afford to get too crazy on them. Esteban Ocon, DRS. Can he make this move around the outside of the Ferrari? I'll tell you what, I did not expect him to go for that move there. With the help of the DRS, and as we go around Stowe, he is going to be in third in this race. Max Verstappen, 8 seconds up the road. There are 8 laps left. If we just look at the lap times right now, not eating enough into the time to catch him. But Ocon and Leclerc could be fighting to the end of this race for a podium. I don't think we need to panic too much just yet, but as we try and get through some back markers, Leclerc, in a place where he's passed Ocon already, has made the move again. I feel like the DRS on that Ferrari gives them just enough of an edge, even on that slower tyre, to make the move. You can see the cars were there side by side. I can confirm, if we now just go on board with Ocon, that position has been lost. But we've not lost touching distance with the Ferrari yet. Still within that second. That is the main thing here. We're now in this weird spot where, well, we've got drivers in 4th and 5th because Alonso has managed to catch Ocon and Leclerc. They lost about 4 seconds, which is a massive amount of time to lose, in all honesty. There's part of me that wants to tell Alonso to race here with Ocon, but I do think we need to be sensible on the whole. Maybe it is time, however, just to tell Ocon to get a bit more punchy.
All right, let's keep closing up.
Do I just tell Alonso to fight too? Do I want to risk our drivers hitting each other here? Second place is not on the table right now. You know, realistically, we are not going to catch them in the laps that remain. I think Verstappen is just too far up the road now. It's 12.5 seconds. Is there a world where I could get both drivers in front of Leclerc? Is there a world where we could maybe make them work together to make something happen? So right now, I'm harvesting with Alonso because he's so close behind these guys. He doesn't really need to use his battery to keep up. Leclerc is desperately defending. You can almost feel the pressure that he's under in the way that he's driving right now. These two Alpines just hunting him down. I said it last lap, it's not a fair fight. It's still not a fair fight either. As you can see, Ocon trying to make the move work, just can't quite make it happen, although maybe, I was going to say maybe a chance to go up the inside, but you don't make a move up the inside of Abbey there. Not this late into a race, not with, what, 6 laps left, and oh my word, Alonso's locked up. Oh, Fernando, he's been driving so well. He was chasing them, and, well, the 2v1 fight, everyone, it's a 1v1 again. Not on shipment. It's on Silverstone. Yeah, I mean, the good news is Alonso's rejoined the track here, but unfortunately, with all this charge he's got, he's not going to be able to catch anyone now. He is now 4 seconds behind. It is now a 1 versus 1, and I'll tell you what, it's a 1 versus 1 that Ocon has come off better in. That said, there is now an Aston Martin for us to get past. Please no blocking. Please no blocking. Thank you. Leclerc's going to make his way through as well, unfortunately. He's still sat right behind us. I've been sat in deploy on Ocon to try and make the move happen. But as we've experienced already in this race, we just can't get a second ahead. Leclerc is going to be here to the end. It's all going to be about tactically using battery at the right moment. In a weird way, kind of want him to go past us on this straight so that we can just charge our battery behind him. With the help of DRS, with that Ferrari power, he's going to make the move look easy. But we don't need to panic. We can just sit behind here, play the patient game. Only a handful of laps left. And third is still a possibility. I don't think Alonso needs to be too worried. Perez's mate, still, what, 13 seconds behind him? Even with that lockup, he's not lost too much time, ultimately. 3 laps left of this race. Ocon trailing Leclerc, but I think just a little bit too far behind here, even with the help of DRS, to make a move on Leclerc here. But we've got a nicely charged battery. We've played it patient. The tyres have life in them. The fuel is surplus. We can just push here between now and the end of this race, I feel like. 2 laps left now. As we cross the start-finish line, we are going to ask him to give it full beans. We have been patient. We switched his strategy up so he'd be on the soft tyre at the end for a situation like this. For a situation where we might need to be on a faster tyre. Whilst it is more worn than Leclerc's mediums, it should be a tyre that does give us enough pace here. Of course, we could also set fastest lap. We've already got it with Ocon, but there might be an opportunity to better it even more now. As down this straight we go with the help of DRS, with the battery set to deploy. We are going to make the move stick. And now for Ocon, it's just a case of trying to push and vanish up the road. Hoping that Leclerc used a lot of battery to try and hold us back. And with our patience, maybe now we can just vanish. Looking at, well, Leclerc right now, he's not that close behind, but still within that critical second. Push, Ocon, push. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2. Someone has spun out. I'm hoping that's not going to affect us too much. In fact, who was it? I'm not sure. We'll find out in a moment. It's Magnussen. Does not affect us one little bit. Leclerc still within DRS range here. 1 lap left after this. A few corners left of the penultimate lap. He's closing the gap, Leclerc, but he's just not quite close enough behind to make anything happen here on Ocon. We are approaching a back marker, which makes me a little bit nervous for what could happen here. Leclerc is right up behind us. We have enough battery to just deploy for the rest of this last lap. The tyre life is there. The fuel is there. Sorry, Alonso, you've been forgotten about here, mate. You will do your own thing. It's all on Ocon now and how he can deal with this last lap of pressure. He got P2 last race. He's been chased behind by Leclerc. The good news for us is, as long as we clear this Alfa Romeo nicely, we're going to get DRS off them here. And Leclerc, who's chasing behind, is going to see our rear wing open. And with the battery we've got, with the fuel that we've got, we are just pulling away a little bit. That Alfa Romeo might have arrived at just the right moment. Half a lap left here, further up the road. It feels inevitable that Sainz is going to win this race. Verstappen, he's going to get P2. Ocon has used all his battery, though. I felt like we had enough battery to eke it out over the course of this lap. Leclerc, he might be able to get us on the last lap. It's getting gloomy here at Silverstone. If there is any rain to come, it's going to come a little bit too late. Leclerc still within a second as we're about to come down the hangar straight, a DRS zone that Leclerc is still within touching distance on. Esteban Ocon, you've used all your battery prematurely. It's on me, but you have got the biggest gap you've had for this part of the track all race. And I'll tell you what, the gap still exists. Sainz crossed the line to win. We're going to track things here, though, because we're 4 corners left. Leclerc is still right up behind us. Esteban, hold on, my friend. He is going to hold on. He's going to come round the final corner. He is going to secure P3 for us. I thought I'd messed it up when I told him to push early. I thought we'd be able to break that second gap, and we just couldn't. The good news was the Ferrari didn't have a lot left in the tank either. Alonso in all of that comes home for 5th. That's still a really, really good finish for him. We started P4 and P5 going into this race. We've ended up with 3rd and 5th. Poor Sergio Perez got completely messed up by Red Bull, and Red Bull have struggled this year. They are going to lose even more ground on Ferrari, unfortunately. For them, fortunately for us, means that we keep closer to them, and we are still kind of in a hunt for 2nd place in the Constructors this year. Drink it in, enjoy it. Ocon on the podium 2 episodes in a row. Things you love to see. Max Verstappen does not look very happy with 2nd there. He knows the damage is being done by Ferrari right now. They are pulling away. Ocon, for the 2nd time in as many races, gets to sit there, hoist a trophy aloft. Yes, it's 1 step lower down than it was last time. But I'll tell you what, the way this season's going, our drivers are going to get very good at this whole spraying champagne malarkey. It is another weekend to remember. So here are the final standings for the British Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz, running that one-stopper, ended up winning. Max Verstappen, 2nd place, made up 9 places after that penalty he had to take at the start. Massive drive for him. Esteban Ocon finishing 3rd, made up 2 places. He was the best placed of all the 2-stopping teams. You can see, obviously, Alonso with the one-stopper ended up working for us. As I kind of predicted around halfway through this race, It was always going to be a Ferrari, a Red Bull, and an Alpine kind of next to each other on the podium. It was a case of which ones was it going to be? And I think a lot of it was going to come down to, which strategy ended up being best. Ultimately, though, despite a spin for Alonso, despite a lockup for Alonso, it's good points. It's points that see Ocon move up to 5th in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of Sergio Perez, might I add. Sainz takes the lead over his teammate Leclerc, who had a bit of a weekend to forget. And in the Constructors, we gained 26 points. Red Bull gained 26 points. We move clear of Mercedes, only 6 points behind now. The Austrian outfit, Ferrari, I mean, look at it. It's one of the least competitive seasons in recent F1 memory. He's over 150 points ahead. We're not even halfway through the season yet. We have a development point for Esteban Ocon. We're going to put it in his braking. I think all in all, we just need to continue to work on his pace. Obviously, at the moment, Alonso consistently outqualifies Ocon. I think a lot of that is just down to his cornering, braking, and reaction. I mean, at 25, I'm not expecting him to get way better, but he's got average growth potential. He can still get a little bit quicker. Who knows? By the end of this series, he might be lapping quicker than Alonso if they're both still in the car by the end of the series. I feel like Alonso, aged 40-something, might ship him off to the farm before the series is over. Maybe even at the end of this year. Would that be controversial? He has only got 6 months left on his contract, so it probably is something I should consider. You guys can let me know what you think I should do with Fernando Alonso. Should I keep him around? Should I move on to someone else? Answers on a postcard. Next time out, we are heading to Austria and the Red Bull Ring. It is going to be a dry weekend. I'm going to breathe a sigh of relief because I always get it wrong in the rain. It should be another good race for us, though. It's definitely a track that suits our car and suits our strengths. And, well, I hope you've been enjoying the series as always. If you have, do drop a like on today's video. Apologies for the fact the episodes in this series aren't as consistent as I want them to be. Ultimately, these videos take about 8 hours to produce from start to finish. There's a lot of work that goes into them. I don't want them to be low effort videos where I just hit start record and stop record. I want you to be able to enjoy it. I want it to feel nicely, cleanly edited. And unfortunately, the caveat with all that quality means that I can't necessarily get out the quantity that some of you guys crave. Nevertheless, hope this one was worth the wait. Next episode marks the halfway point in the season, and hopefully off the back of it, we could be ahead of Red Bull. That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.